Last lesson, the built-in /commands. Today, the last lesson of Phase B, make your own /command, backed by a skill. By the end of this lesson, you will understand how to wrap a skill behind a custom /command, so typing /review or /deploy triggers a whole procedure. This is where OpenCode starts to feel like building your own tools, not just using someone else's. End of Phase B, why custom /commands? Skills are powerful, but they're loaded automatically based on relevance. Sometimes you want to be explicit. Sometimes you want a shortcut for a skill you use all the time. A custom /command is exactly that, an explicit trigger for a skill. You type /my command, the skill loads immediately. No guesswork, no hoping the relevance matcher picks up on what you want. Anatomy. You start with a skill, a folder with a skill.md file. Then you add a small config that maps a /command name to that skill. Now /my command loads that skill. Pure convenience, no extra magic underneath. The skill does the work, the /command is just a shortcut for triggering it. Here is a concrete example. You have a skill called pre-commit, a checklist you want to run before every commit. You wrap a custom /command around it, /precommit. Now whenever you type /precommit in any session, OpenCode loads that skill, the skill content enters the context window, the model follows the procedure in the skill, and you get a pre-commit review without explaining. 3 characters instead of a paragraph. 3 characters instead of a paragraph. That is the power of custom commands. When should you wrap a skill in a custom command? Use the skill often, daily or more. Want to be explicit about loading it, instead of relying on relevance matching. Want a short name for a long procedure. Want colleagues to discover and use the same procedure. All 4 are good reasons. If a skill is rare, leave it as a skill, relevance matching will find it when needed. Sharing custom commands works the same as sharing skills. Personal commands live in .config/opencode/skills inside your home folder. Project commands live in .opencode/skills inside the project. Commit the project ones to Git, and the whole team gets them. Personal ones stay personal, they don't travel with the codebase. Naming your custom commands. Short, ideally one word. Memorable, /review, /deploy, /test, /lint. Namespaced if needed, /project test, /project deploy, when you have many. And avoid colliding with built-in commands. You can't override /new or /session, but you also don't want to confuse yourself by picking similar names. Short, memorable, namespaced if needed. Good command names. How do custom commands evolve? Start with a personal skill, something you find yourself doing repeatedly. Use it for a while. When you use it daily, wrap it in a command. When the team starts using it too, move it to project scope so everyone gets it. Skills and commands grow organically. Don't over-engineer upfront. Limitations to know. Custom commands don't run code themselves. They load a skill, the model then does the work according to the skill's instructions. They're shortcuts for skill loading, not functions in the programming sense. If you need actual code to run, queries against a database, calls to an API, that's a different category. That's an MCP server, which we'll cover in Phase G. If you remember one idea, custom /commands are explicit skill triggers. Use them for daily or frequent skills. Same scoping as skills, personal in .config, project in .opencode. Short memorable names. The command is the shortcut, the skill does the work. Concrete command examples from real projects. /lint, runs the linter and explains any errors. /test, runs tests and summarizes failures. /deploy, runs the deploy checklist skill. /new feature, scaffolds a new feature with the team's preferred structure. /changelog, generates a changelog from recent Git commits. Each command wraps a skill that would otherwise be many lines of instruction. Evolution of a command. Most start as a one-line prompt you keep retyping. Become a few-line instruction in agents.md when you realize it's a preference. Mature into a full skill with steps and references when you realize it's a procedure. And finally get wrapped in a /command when you use it daily. The journey from retyped prompt to /command is natural, don't force it. Sharing commands with your team. Project commands live in .opencode/skills inside the project. Commit to Git, everyone on the team gets them automatically. Onboarding becomes easier, new developers learn the team's commands as they learn the codebase. Encourages consistent workflows across the team. A small team might have 5 or 10 project commands within months. Debugging custom commands. Skill not loading, check the skill.md file exists in the right place. Wrong skill loads, check the trigger conditions in the skill header. Command doesn't trigger anything, check spelling and that the skill file is valid. Use /help to see all available commands in your current context. If your command isn't listed, it's not being found. Most issues are file path problems. Quick recap. Custom /commands wrap skills. They're triggered explicitly, /my command. Short, memorable names. Same scoping as skills, personal or project. And that wraps phase B. You now understand the conceptual shape of OpenCode. Chatbot versus agent, the one big idea. What OpenCode is and why this course uses it. Prompting, basics, roleplay, few shot, interview me. Memory, project and global agents.md. Skills, reusable chunks of instruction. And /commands, both built-in and custom. Phase B complete. You now understand OpenCode conceptually. Here is a mental exercise. Think of a procedure you do often, at work, in a hobby, in any project. Sketch what the skill would contain. Imagine typing /your command to trigger it. File the idea away for when you install OpenCode in Phase C. The best first custom command is one you've been wanting for years. Coming up next, Phase C. We install OpenCode. Phase A was AI fundamentals. Phase B was agents, OpenCode, prompting, memory, skills. Phase C is where the talking stops and the doing starts. You'll install OpenCode on your machine, connect a free model, and have your first real session. Everything we've covered conceptually becomes muscle memory. Phase B done. Phase C is where you start driving. Phase B complete. The conceptual foundation is set. Thanks for spending this time with me. Phase B is done. In Phase C, we install OpenCode together.